Today, we'll debate, should there be stricter regulations on alcohol consumption on New Year's Eve? With Jonathan, a health-conscious advocate, and Emily, a celebratory libertarian. They're two artificial intelligence personas. Please introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Jonathan, a passionate advocate for public health and safety. My work revolves around promoting healthier societies through evidence-based strategies and proactive measures. I'm particularly focused on the issue of alcohol consumption, especially during high-risk times like New Year's Eve. Data consistently shows that excessive alcohol intake can lead to an increase in accidents, violence, and long-term health problems. I've dedicated my efforts to championing stricter regulations, such as limiting alcohol sales and enforcing penalties for violations, to create safer environments for everyone. It's essential that we balance the joy of celebrating with the responsibility of ensuring public safety. Through awareness campaigns and targeted interventions, I strive to promote moderation, helping individuals enjoy the festivities without compromising their health or the well-being of others. My approach is firm but compassionate, aimed at fostering a healthier and more responsible society.
Hi there, I'm Emily, a spirited libertarian who champions the cause of individual freedom and personal responsibility. I believe that people should have the liberty to make their own choices, particularly when it comes to celebrating occasions like New Year's Eve. It's a time for joy, expression, and freedom, and I argue that excessive government regulations, like those on alcohol consumption, infringe on these freedoms. Instead of imposing stricter rules, I advocate for education as the path to responsible behavior. I trust individuals to be mindful of their actions and to respect the rights and safety of others. My vision is a society where people are empowered to enjoy their freedoms fully, celebrating with joy and responsibility without overly restrictive constraints. I value the spirit of celebration and believe it's possible to strike a balance between freedom and safety, allowing everyone to have a genuinely jubilant experience.
Thank you, guys. Jonathan and Emily will now present their 3 rounds of arguments.
Emily, I understand and appreciate your commitment to individual freedoms. However, when we look at real-life examples, we can see that regulations sometimes play a crucial role in ensuring public safety, especially when it comes to alcohol. Take, for instance, the impact of lowering the legal blood alcohol concentration (BAC) limits for drivers in countries like Sweden and Australia. These regulations have significantly decreased drunk driving incidents and related fatalities. Regulation doesn't necessarily stifle freedom, instead, it can create an environment where people can safely enjoy their liberties. During New Year's Eve, the festivities often lead to increased risks of accidents and alcohol-related harm, not just for the individual but for the community at large. Well-thought-out regulations, like limiting sales hours or increasing taxes during peak times, could reduce these risks by encouraging moderation without completely restricting access. This approach respects individual choice while prioritizing collective well-being, a balance both of us might find ideal. Education is crucial, yes, but without sensible regulation to complement it, we may not achieve the level of safety that benefits everyone.
Jonathan, I acknowledge your dedication to public safety and the examples you've provided. However, let's consider historical evidence where overly strict regulations have had unintended consequences. The Prohibition era in the United States is a primary example. The intention was to curb alcohol consumption and its negative impacts, but instead, it led to a rise in illegal activities, such as bootlegging and organized crime, and didn't significantly reduce alcohol consumption overall. This illustrates that heavy-handed regulations can often backfire, undermining the very goals they're set to achieve. Moreover, by focusing on education and personal responsibility instead of strict regulation, we enable individuals to make informed choices. For instance, countries with robust public health campaigns focusing on moderation, like the Netherlands, have successfully fostered a culture of responsible drinking without over-reliance on restrictive laws. Encouraging this approach promotes a society where people are trusted to make wise decisions, preserving their freedom while also considering public safety. We can achieve the safety you aim for by respecting individuals' rights to choose and holding them accountable for their actions, fostering a community spirit of mutual respect and responsibility.
Emily, I appreciate the historical context you provided with the Prohibition era, and I understand your concerns about unintended consequences. However, I believe that our current context is different and allows for more nuanced approaches. We're not talking about a complete ban on alcohol but rather sensible, targeted regulations that are designed to enhance safety without eliminating personal freedoms. Consider reducing the drinking age in most states. It has led to fewer alcohol-related incidents among young people because it aligns with their developmental readiness. Similarly, during New Year's Eve, implementing targeted measures such as increased roadside checks for impaired driving or temporary restrictions on high-risk promotions in bars can curb potential harm while still providing ample room for celebration. These are not blanket restrictions but focused interventions that address specific risks. Furthermore, regulations can be designed to work hand-in-hand with education campaigns. For example, public health campaigns about the dangers of binge drinking can be amplified by ensuring that venues promote responsible drinking practices. This dual approach leverages education and regulation to create an environment where personal responsibility is encouraged but health and safety are protected. This is about equipping individuals to make informed, safer choices during high-risk periods.
Jonathan, I understand the goal of using targeted regulations to enhance safety, and I respect where you're coming from. However, while these measures aim to reduce harm during high-risk times like New Year's Eve, we shouldn't overlook the power of fostering a culture of personal responsibility and awareness from the ground up. Consider how countries like Japan handle alcohol consumption. There's a strong cultural emphasis on moderation and personal responsibility, with less reliance on extensive laws governing behavior. This cultural approach has proved effective without impinging on personal freedoms, allowing individuals to learn and practice self-regulation naturally. Moreover, the idea of increased roadside checks or temporary restrictions could indeed deter harmful behaviors in the short term, but it might also inadvertently foster resentment or a sense of being overly policed. Instead, by investing in comprehensive public education campaigns that start early and focus on long-term behavioral change, we create a citizenry that values responsible enjoyment over restriction-driven caution. The focus should be on educating from a young age, encouraging community-led initiatives, and promoting peer accountability. These efforts can cultivate a culture where freedom and responsibility coexist harmoniously, minimizing the need for regulatory interventions and ensuring that celebrations remain enjoyable yet safe.
Emily, I must commend your arguments. It's refreshing, like finding an open bar at a dry wedding. Your emphasis on personal responsibility is admirable, and certainly, I'm all for trust where trust is due. But it seems to me like waiting for your Uber ride after a party. It's a great idea, but sometimes doesn't arrive on time when we need it most. Countries like Japan do emphasize moderation, yes, but let's not forget that cultural norms are deeply ingrained and take generations to cultivate. While we wait for that cultural shift to fully embed, wouldn't it be wise to have a safety net, much like carrying an umbrella despite the weatherman's sunny prediction? Education and personal responsibility are indeed vital, but regulations provide support when enthusiasm for independence meets the reality of poor decision-making after a few too many cocktails. Imagine regulations as the carefully placed bumpers in a bowling alley. They won't stop you from having fun or claiming a strike, but they'll make sure you don't end up with an unintended gutter ball. To sum up, while I champion education and cultural shifts, temporary and sensible regulations can safeguard public well-being. It's about balance, ensuring the punch is just as strong without letting the party spill into chaos. Freedom and responsibility aren't mutually exclusive, and with a little support, everyone gets to have their cake and eat it responsibly, too.
Jonathan, your points are as structured as a perfectly planned dinner party, where everything flows seamlessly, except when your over-regulated oven keeps calling the shots. Regulations as bumpers do sound practical, but let's not forget, those bumpers can sometimes make us feel like we're in the kiddie lane when we actually want to play big league bowling. Sure, waiting for cultural shifts might be like waiting for the punchline in a sluggish stand-up routine. But in reality, it's more about cultivating the appreciation of a good joke than relying on a rubber chicken to save the day. You argue for regulations to ensure safety, but sometimes it's precisely these restrictions that make people want to find a loophole or throw their own after-party. The idea here is to make responsibility appealing and trendy, like swapping out kale smoothies for overly restrictive measures. Healthy is in, and forced is out. To wrap it up, I believe in empowering individuals to make their own safe choices, like choosing the perfect wine to pair with your New Year's Eve dinner. While your sensible regulations ensure nothing burns, let's keep the recipes of freedom dynamic and star-studded, letting individuals steer responsibly in a world that trusts their choices without over-preheating their independence.
Thank you for your speeches. Someone from the audience will now make a question to Jonathan and Emily.
Hello, I'm Alex, a public policy student with a keen interest in health and societal dynamics. It's been enlightening to hear your perspectives, Jonathan and Emily. I noticed the debate didn't touch much on the economic impacts of alcohol regulations. Jonathan, while you focused on public health and safety, I'm curious about how you see stricter alcohol regulations affecting small businesses, especially bars and restaurants, during major celebrations like New Year's Eve. How do you propose balancing these economic considerations with the safety measures you advocate for?
Alex, that's a great point, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Balancing economic considerations with public safety is crucial, especially for small businesses that rely heavily on festive occasions like New Year's Eve for significant revenue. One approach to addressing this balance is through strategic, temporary measures that minimize the negative economic impact while still enhancing safety. For instance, instead of blanket restrictions on alcohol sales, we could implement measures like incentivizing bars and restaurants to offer a wider range of non-alcoholic beverages and special discounts for designated drivers. This not only encourages responsible drinking but also opens up new market segments, potentially increasing their customer base. Additionally, implementing safe and supportive measures such as government grants or subsidies to encourage businesses to host alcohol safety training for their staff could help maintain safety standards while still boosting business readiness and appeal. By fostering partnerships between public health officials and the hospitality industry, we can create initiatives that simultaneously protect customers' well-being and support economic vitality. Ultimately, the objective is to create a thriving environment where businesses can prosper without compromising the health and safety of their patrons. By finding innovative solutions that blend regulation with economic support, we can ensure that New Year's Eve remains both a prosperous and safe celebration for all involved.
Emily, I'm curious about an aspect that wasn't fully explored in your arguments: the role of technology in promoting responsible behavior. In a world that's increasingly digital, how do you see technology being utilized to enhance personal freedom while also encouraging responsibility during events like New Year's Eve? Could apps or digital platforms play a role in this, perhaps by offering real-time information or incentives for safe choices?
Alex, that's a fantastic question, and I'm excited to dive into the potential of technology in this context. In our increasingly digital world, technology absolutely holds great promise for promoting responsible behavior while respecting individual freedoms during celebrations like New Year's Eve. For starters, apps and digital platforms can be game changers in providing individuals with real-time information to make safer choices. For example, they can offer services like finding nearby public transportation options, tracking one's alcohol intake throughout the night, or offering alerts for when it might be time to slow down on the drinks. Technology can also be leveraged to create engaging incentives. Think along the lines of gamifying responsible behavior. Apps could reward users for actions like booking a rideshare or checking into a designated driver program with discounts or points redeemable at their favorite local haunts. Moreover, social media and digital campaigns can play a vital role in spreading awareness and education in a more relatable and less authoritative manner. By engaging directly with people on the platforms they use daily, we can promote a culture of responsibility while celebrating individuality. Overall, digital tools can empower individuals to make informed, responsible decisions while celebrating their freedom, blending modern innovation with timeless values of personal accountability.
The debaters now have a minute to talk about something they regret not bringing up to the discussion.
Well, Alex, in the spirit of a relaxed chat, I must admit I regret not bringing up the joy of mocktails earlier in the discussion. I mean, who doesn't love a good alcohol-free pina colada with all the fun and none of the next day regrets? It could have been my secret weapon to win over a few more allies here. As for a truly perplexing argument from Emily, in the nicest way possible, of course, her idea of gamifying responsible behavior struck me as a bit of a stretch. I couldn't help but imagine a world where, instead of safety warnings, we hear a voiceover saying, "Congratulations, you just unlocked the 'Stayed Under the Limit' badge. Double points if you can walk in a straight line." While I can see where she's coming from, sometimes I think a little less gamification and a little more real-world caution tips might be the safer bet. Nonetheless, I appreciate her creative thinking, even if her approach felt a tad like trying to shoehorn a fun run into a legislative meeting, perhaps a little too free-spirited at times.
Alex, in keeping with the light-hearted vibes, I should probably admit to not mentioning perhaps the most compelling argument of all, the power of a supportive friend. Because, let's face it, nothing says responsible celebration like a buddy who texts you the dreaded, "Are you sure about that extra glass?" Just thinking about a designated texter service tickles me, and it might have added a humorous twist. As for Jonathan's points, I have to chuckle at his notion of safety regulations being like bumpers in a bowling alley. While I respect the visual, I can't help but picture the chaos if everyone was so bumped and buffered that we end up in a bizarre version of bumper cars with cocktails. Why stop there, Jonathan? Let's just put everyone in bubble wrap before they head out. Joking aside, I do appreciate his focus on safety, even if sometimes it sounds like he might be ready to start a side gig in no-spill drinkware. We disagree on methods, but we both want people to enjoy their freedom safely, albeit with different lanes of thinking.
Thank you, folks. Let's go over to our judges. Jonathan's scores: 1. Clarity and structure, 8 out of 10. Jonathan presented his arguments clearly and methodically, providing structured reasoning behind his stance on alcohol regulations. His points were coherent, although at times he could have delved deeper into the practicality and specific examples of his suggested measures. 2. Use of evidence and examples, 7 out of 10. Jonathan effectively used historical examples such as reduced blood alcohol concentration limits in Sweden and Australia, showcasing evidence of regulatory success. However, he could have enhanced his argument by integrating more contemporary data or statistics directly linked to recent New Year's Eve events. 3. Engagement and wit, 9 out of 10. His ability to incorporate humor, particularly in his lighthearted rebuttals and creative analogies, was engaging and added a dynamic element to the debate. This approach made his arguments relatable without detracting from the seriousness of his message. Emily's scores: 1. Clarity and structure, 7 out of 10. Emily presented her libertarian perspective with persuasive and cohesive arguments. Her points about education and personal responsibility were consistent, though occasionally she risked oversimplifying the complex nature of cultural change and responsibility enforcement. 2. Use of evidence and examples, 6 out of 10. While she presented interesting cultural comparisons like Japan's approach to alcohol consumption, her argument lacked specific examples or data that could strengthen her position on minimal government intervention. More real-world case studies or statistics would have added weight to her points. 3. Engagement and wit. 10 out of 10. Emily excelled in engaging with the audience through creativity and wit. Her humorous examples, such as gamifying responsible drinking, though slightly offbeat, injected personality into the debate. Her ability to capture attention and entertain while debating serious topics was commendable. What are your opinions about the debate? What would you like to see AI's debate next? Keep questioning.